Hey guys, so this is the Wraith rig. Before we get started, I'd like to say thank you to Walsh for starting up the model and finishing the textures. You guys can check him out on the link below. So this is going to go over the control rig. For anyone who's seen the demo reel that I posted, he's a very in-cloth heavy character, but this is going to go over the actual rig and how it's meant to interact with his dynamic simulation. So for starters, I'm going to take you guys to his head. He's got a really basic setup here, but what I want to bring your attention to is the secondary controls. You guys are going to notice that this echoes throughout most of his rig, the whole hidden control system. You do have complete control over his crown. Can translate and rotate that. You'll notice that in some of the animations he's in. These controls, I want to show you something. It looks like they're not influencing anything. However, he has I call them ghost bones, but he has a full skeleton in here, and it interacts with his cloth. It's meant to be hidden, and I'm actually going to show you how that works in just a second. It's meant to be a really subtle effect, but if you take a look at his face over here during this play blast, you'll be able to see, there we go, this very vague, there we go, the very vague skull right there. And the animator who did this didn't actually play with those controls, so it's naturally gonna rub against his face mask. I think you guys can see it, like even right there. It's meant to be a really subtle effect, and it's working out nice. You do have the ability to translate that outwards or rotate it, and it yields some pretty nice results. So that's one of the ways that his rig is designed to interact with his dynamic sim, and actually his face mask has been up-res so that you can retain a lot of the shape from the underlying skull. And like I said, and like you guys could see, he has a rib cage in there too, and it's just to give him that extra layer of wow when you see his dynamic simulation. So moving down his rig, we're going to get into his arms. You'll notice he has these really big shoulder plates. Instead of having the animator go through and move the plates themselves, I did an auto plate function, so his plates will move when you move the arm. His underplate will actually slide alongside, alongside his top plate, and it gives a more natural feel to it. Like I said, the whole echoing of the hidden control system, you do have the individual controls, so even though you have an autoplate system here, you can come through and manually animate these. You also have the ability to translate them off. He is a ghost character, so I really wanted the animator to have a lot of freedom with his armor. Like I said, you have the secondary control on the lower plate too. Another thing I added in to compensate for his shoulder pads being so large is a visibility swap on the top one. That way he can get a larger range of motion without poking himself in the face. You'll notice if I come back over here and turn these on, he's officially stabbing himself in his ghost face. Which, you know, is fine, he's a ghost, but Dylan, when he modeled this, these secondary plates actually still look appealing and give him a wider range of motion, so I feel like it works either way. When it comes down to his hands, there's nothing too fancy. He still has all of his curls and separates. He does have the extra layer of control where you can come in and do it manually. Another thing with his hands is that the sword plays well with both his left and right hand. He can do the whole what is it called, space switching. So you can come over here, snap it to there, and then say follow his right hand. Next thing you know, the ghost has the ability to move his sword. Really simple stuff, but it really does wonders for helping the animator out. While we're on his sword, let me show you one of the cool features I put in there. You have to be in viewport 2.0 to see this without render, but you can pull his sword out of midair. Sorry, that was a bit abrupt, but yeah, he has a transparency slider. I figured, you know, since he's a ghost, it'd be neat if he had like a sword that was on him at all times and he could just kind of like pull out of nothing. And you can key that. It's a 0 to 10. It's very gradual. But moving down, we're going to get into some of his more ghost-like features. Let's look at his robe. So when you initially move his robe, you'll notice that you have this kind of like lag, almost like a linger back there, but you can set his robe to follow his hip. See if this is on the right one too. Yep. And now you can kind of get that ghostly translate here. And when you turn dynamics on, we'll get into that a bit later, but when you turn the dynamics on, like, you'll get all of that flow for free, and I'll show you guys how that looks in just a minute. Once again, back to his robe, you can turn this off. Let's just say we want this to follow world. But you can come down here and you get a lot of control over this. Let's turn this off. Sorry. Boom. Now you can move his lower part of his robe, the middle part of his robe, and even like his hips. You can get a lot of control with that. I think it's called a Tadar, just like a little loincloth. It follows the same rules as the rest of his body. But another thing about his robe is he has this inner and outer piece. He does have outer controls for his robe too. So when you turn these on, you can actually get some pretty nice looking results if you use the scale. Like open up his lower robe. And by the way, when he's rendered out, these white parts are actually completely transparent, and you'll see some of that in one of the videos I'll show you guys in just a bit. And you can come up here and like really play with these. Like you have a lot of control with his outer robe. And then his inner robe still works with that turned on as well. Let me just turn that off. He has a lot of control, so I did hide everything that you didn't need to start off with. That way you can choose what level of detail you want with the character rig. Alright, and one other thing I did, like his armor was one of the main things that once the dynamics are turned on, the armor is the main thing that the animators are going to be responsible for. So I did give him a lot of control with those. Each of these plates has individual control as well, so you can give him a nice little rotation. And all of these are passive colliders, so whatever the animator does, it will interact with his dynamic simulation. So for his main rig, that pretty much sums it up. Everything you do here will translate into the dynamics, and I'll show you guys that in just a moment. But one thing I wanted to show you guys before I get into the video and the renders is this wind tool I created. It comes with him. You'll see this little tracker right here. This actually dictates where the wind comes from, but instead of showing you in this scene, I'm actually going to open up a little test scene I created just to illustrate the point of how the wind tool works. I won't save this. Alright, so we're just going to up this to about 1,000 so we can have some more room to play. Just going to hit this, and let's go into my rigging shelf. Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and let's bump this up to 20, and then I'll show you guys what it does. So I'm just going to do the interactive playback, and you'll notice as I rotate this that the cloth is rotating dynamically with it. So instead of you having to open up a node and put in some weird values, especially for these like awkward angles that aren't like straight down X or Y, you can literally just place this tracker where you want to, and the wind tool will do the rest. You can dictate the speed from here and then the position as well. And this is relevant to the entire world, so it doesn't matter where your character is in the scene. Wherever you place that will be the overall direction that the wind comes from. And like I said, when you're playing with in-cloth, a lot of this comes from the nucleus, so instead of having to go in and press like 0.5y and 0.003x and do these really awkward numbers, you can literally just dictate where the wind goes, and you have this nice little tool that pops up there, and none of this renders out. And like I said, this comes with the Wraith, so it's just something I felt would help the animators and even help the simulation guy. So speaking of the simulation, I'm going to kind of just show you some of the test things that I played with. This is one of his first sims, and I'm actually going to be doing a few tutorials that go over in-cloth and some of the workflows that I found best for taking it from the initial setup all the way to where he is now. You'll also see he's kind of interpenetrating here with the wind tool, but that's been taken care of in his final model. And to kind of show you where everything ends up, this is the actual footage that made it onto my reel, and here we go. And in that little bit of footage, you were able to see everything I put into him, especially that little sword draw. I thought that was a nice little feature to add to the Wraith. Ultimately, that's the character. His control rig, like I said, was designed to interact with dynamic sims. So I hope you guys like what you saw. If you have any questions or comments, just let me know. Any critiques as well. Thank you guys for watching.